Hey everybody, it's time for another edition of Which One Works. This is a series of videos that I'm doing to walk you through my evaluation of photographs to decide on which ones I want to process and publish. You know, oftentimes the difference between a good photograph and a great photograph is really just the small things. And in this series, I hope to show you some of the details and some of the nuances that I look for in my photographs to decide which one works. So let's dive in and take a look at a few images from my recent workshop up in Olympic National Park. All right, let's dive right into the Olympic National Park. You know, and as I said in the intro, we had some wonderful conditions, a lot of mixed variety of things, and of course mixed locations from the beach to the rainforest to creeks and waterfalls, mountains, fog, a little bit of snow. We had a little bit of everything, and so this Which One Works is going to reflect that. So this first series of images was shot up on Rialto Beach one night, and we had a great evening. Really nice sunset, not overly colorful, but still beautiful. And I was set up shooting this particular composition with the sea stacks off in the distance, nice clouds up above. I like it. But this shot is not going to make the cut for a couple of reasons. Number one, the surf here is not very interesting. It's not blurred enough for me. I don't have enough water motion. And there's this really dark line that runs right here that sort of acts as a visual barrier or gate for getting out further into the scene. So this little piece of the photograph I don't like. Normally when shooting the beach, I like some foreground interest, and usually it's a foam line like this. This one's not bad, but this middle ground of the ocean doesn't do it for me. So the next shot, slightly different. Now I don't have that dark visual line here. I've got a smaller one, but it's less pronounced in the photograph. And so I think it's a little bit more acceptable. So I don't mind this so much, but I don't really have a great foreground interest here. The foam lines, nothing really creates that sort of dynamic feeling that I'm looking for when I shoot the ocean. So the one that I picked is this, slightly different composition. This is just a few minutes later in the evening. Of course, I'm missing that other sea stack that was off here on the left, which is too bad, but I still got a great amount of sky. I've got a really calm mid-ground ocean, so it sort of recedes visually. This part of the ocean is not important to me photographically in a shot like this. It's the sky, it's the land in the distance, and then I've got this beautiful amount of detail, this foreground interest right down here that made me choose this over the other one. So this one works, in my opinion, more than the others. So let's jump up to the rainforest, and the whole rainforest. We're up in the Hall of Mosses, and there's this beautiful tree with this trunk and root structure coming up out of the ground, and it's a great artistic shape to it. So here's a photo. Here's the first photograph I took, and you know, it's in the vertical orientation, which I kind of like because it accentuates the length of this root. This is sort of, you know, and trees are vertical, so I oftentimes shoot them in a vertical orientation. So in this case, you know, having that vertical orientation really works. It almost looks like on the left, though, with this branch coming down, and then this is actually a separate branch. But it looks like this is wrapping, and I cut off part of the corner here. So that visually to me seems a little funky. But the thing that killed this shot for me, which I did not see in the field, and this is why I recommend to everybody to slow down, scan your composition before you take it, is this tree in the background. Notice that I cut off part of the tree down here especially. This tree is annoying, and so this shot doesn't work for me for that one very reason. So what did I do? Once I noticed that, I tightened it up. I got a tighter composition. Got rid of the tree on the left, and now I can see that this is a separate root structure, which is different from this. So that sense of being cut off in the corner, I don't feel as much with this photograph. Still the vertical orientation, it highlights the verticality of the trees and the length of that root, which is great. And to contrast that with a horizontal shot, if I really wanted the context of the forest around the tree, I could do something like this. Very different feel, right? Very different feel. Notice that in the background, these two trees, I've got good separation between them, and I've got separation between the tree on the left and the edge of the frame. The only thing that I don't like is how bright this log is, and these images are unprocessed, so take it with a grain of salt. So I can tone down this log a little bit and shift the focus over to this root structure. What the horizontal shot does for me is it shows the breadth, the width of that tree trunk, and it was a massive tree. So going back to the vertical that I liked, really nice. This is my winner between this one and this one. But between these two, very different feels, very different shots. Both of these, in my opinion, are winners. And I think both of them are going to process up very nicely. But this is a great lesson, folks, in shooting both vertical and horizontal compositions when your subject allows it. You can come away with two different kinds of photographs, both equally good. So don't forget to shoot both ways when you're out in the field. One of the mornings we took a hike into the Salduck area, and one of the streams on the way to Salduck Falls is this beautiful little stream that we spent 1 hour to 2 hours working this stream, shooting different types of compositions. This is one of them that I shot that I liked this little pour over of water. This is kind of why I took it. And I liked the green moss up here on the left. Great. So this was sort of my starting composition. When I looked at this, well, I've got this stick here, which I don't like, but I know that I can remove that in post. I'm not a big fan of all of this rock here on the left, but I know that I could maybe do a slight crop and bring some of that up. But again, it's fixing it in post instead of doing it right in the field. And I'm a big proponent of practicing my craft in the field, trying to get the composition as right as possible in camera so I don't have to quote unquote fix it in post. But the thing that kills this shot for me is this log. It's bright, it's colorful, it's in the peripheral vision, and it draws your eye away from the subject, from where I want people to look, which is right here, this cascade of water. So I noticed, I took this shot anyway. I knew that log was a problem, but I took it anyway for this video. So the next thing I did was I zoomed in my lens a little bit, repositioned just slightly, and I came up with this. I was able to exclude a lot of the rocks on the left and definitely exclude that log on the right. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All of that stuff is great, but I don't like the positioning of this in the frame. And in particularly, there's a lot of motion and a lot of action coming through this water here. And how close this is to the edge of my frame does not feel good. It feels like it's adding some tension to the photograph. So this is in essence too close, having the subject too close to the edge of the frame. So what did I do? I backed off just a little bit to this. I got a little bit more breathing space down here so we could see the water actually impact the splash pool just barely at the bottom, just enough. And of course this is still not overbearing. I don't have too much space over here. And there's just a little bit of this log left in the upper right, but there's so little of it that I don't think it's a visual distraction. And then our last morning of the workshop, it had rained the night before. The temps were relatively cold. But I knew that there was going to be some fog forming in the Hoh River Valley. So we headed out that direction to shoot some fog and some forests. And what we found was this. So this is one of the first shots I wanted to talk to you about. This is fog wrapped around the distant hills. And the reason I took this shot was because of the diagonal lines. Of course, I'm going to shoot the fog. I love the fog. The fog is a reason why I stopped and started taking photographs. But this particular composition, I love the diagonal lines of this, 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 and this. I've got 4 diagonal lines all going from the upper left to the lower right, and that repeating pattern feels good. It's a sense of stability, it's a sense of grounding, and these trees in the foreground give a sense of context to where we're at in shooting the fog. But the fog is the subject. So then the next shot is this. I got rid of the trees in the foreground. I got rid of that context, and it's just about the shape of the hill, but more particularly, it's about the fog. I've got all this negative space around the hill, and I've got this fog wrapping around the mountain. Little dusting of snow right on top of these trees. This shot is about the fog around the mountains. This shot is more about the mountains with fog. It changes the emphasis. And so if I want, it depends on the story that I want to tell. If I want to tell a story about fog, this is the shot that's going to work. If I want a shot about context and mountains with the fog in it, this is the shot that's going to work. So both of these shots work, but for very different reasons, telling very different stories. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you might have learned a little bit from that. It was a fantastic week up in the Olympics. Had a great group, a great workshop. We had wonderful conditions, a whole lot of mixed conditions from bright sun to rain to fog. It was just a beautiful experience up in this park. If you've never been, highly recommend to go. So if you have any comments, any questions, please feel free to leave them down below. If you haven't subscribed, please feel free to subscribe down there, tickle the bell, get notified when I release new videos. And with that, I wish you a great day and happy shooting. All right, bye-bye.